What if the reason you can't think clearly has nothing to do with how smart you are? What if overthinking isn't a thinking problem at all? It's a problem of trying to think about thinking while you're already thinking. The brain doesn't work like a library where you can pull out any book at will and examine it carefully. It works more like a stream, and when you try to grab the water to see it better, you disturb the very thing you're trying to observe. Most people believe that more thinking leads to better thinking. That if you just analyze something long enough, turn it over enough times in your mind, you'll finally see it clearly. But there's something peculiar that happens when you do this. The more you think about a problem, the muddier it becomes. Not because the problem is getting harder, but because you're adding layer upon layer of thought on top of the original question. Let's look at what actually happens when someone overthinks. Imagine a student sitting with a mathematics problem. The problem itself might be straightforward. Find the area of a triangle. Simple enough. But watch what happens in the mind. First comes the actual problem. Then comes the thought. Am I doing this right? Then, what if I forget the formula? Then, I always mess these up. Then, why am I so slow at this? Pretty soon, the student isn't working on the mathematics problem anymore. They're working on an entirely different problem, a psychological one, about their own adequacy. And that problem has no solution, because it's not even a real problem. It's just noise. This is what overthinking really is. It's the mind creating secondary problems that have nothing to do with the original question. And here's what makes it particularly troublesome. These secondary problems feel important. They feel like thinking, but they're just interference. Now, the natural question is, how do you stop this? And that's where most people make another mistake. They try to stop overthinking by thinking about how to stop overthinking. They analyze their overthinking. They worry about their worry. And now they've created a third layer of problems on top of the second layer, which was already on top of the first layer. It's like trying to smooth out wrinkles in a bedsheet by crumpling it up more. So what's the alternative? The first principle is surprisingly simple. Separate the question from the questioning. When you look at any problem, whether it's mathematical, practical, or personal, there's the actual problem, and then there's everything you're adding to it. Most of the mental suffering comes from that second part. The actual problem of, how do I solve this equation, is clean. The added parts, what does it mean if I can't? Why is this so hard for me? What will happen if I fail? Those are the parts that create the tangle. Think about what happens when you read a difficult passage in a book. The passage itself has a certain meaning, but as you read, your mind starts generating commentary. This is confusing. I should understand this. Other people probably get this faster. Maybe I'm not smart enough for this material. Notice that none of this commentary helps you understand the passage. It's just noise. The passage remains exactly as difficult or easy as it was before you added all that commentary. The technique is this. When you notice the commentary starting, you don't fight it. You don't try to stop it. You simply see it for what it is, commentary, not content. It's like watching credits roll at the end of a film. You don't have to do anything with them. You just let them pass. Here's the second principle. The brain clears itself when you give it something real to do. Overthinking happens in a vacuum. When your mind has nothing concrete to work on, it starts working on itself, and that's when you get these endless loops of thought about thought about thought. But give the brain an actual task, something external and specific, and the loops stop. Picture a person lying awake at night, thinking about a conversation they had earlier. Round and round it goes. Did I say the wrong thing? What did they really mean? How should I have responded? This can go on for hours. But now imagine that same person gets up, takes out a piece of paper, and writes down exactly what was said and exactly what they wish they'd said. Suddenly, the thinking becomes productive. It has a direction. It's not overthinking anymore, it's just thinking. The key is specificity. Vague problems generate vague thinking, which generates more vague thinking endlessly. But concrete problems generate concrete thinking, which leads to concrete solutions or concrete conclusions. Even if the conclusion is, I don't know, that's concrete. You can work with that. The third principle is about time and patience. The brain solves problems at its own pace, not at the pace you demand of it. When you try to force understanding, you create pressure. And under pressure, the mind tightens up. It's like trying to remember someone's name at a party. The harder you try, the more it slips away. But the moment you stop trying and move on to something else, the name appears. This doesn't mean being lazy. It means understanding how insight actually works. You can study a problem intensely for an hour, put it aside, and find that the solution appears later while you're doing something completely unrelated, washing dishes, walking, or just staring out a window. This isn't magic. The brain continues working on problems in the background, beneath conscious awareness. But it can only do this when you're not constantly interrupting it with demands for immediate answers. Many students make this mistake. They study for an exam, and when they can't immediately recall something, they panic. They try harder, which creates more panic, which makes recall even harder. But if they simply move to a different question and come back later, the answer they couldn't remember before is suddenly obvious. Nothing changed except the pressure they were applying. Here's the deeper mechanism at work. The mind has two modes of operation. One is focused and deliberate, useful for applying known methods to clear problems. The other is diffuse and associative, useful for making connections, seeing patterns, and finding new approaches. Overthinking happens when you try to use the focused mode for problems that need the diffuse mode, or vice versa. Think of it like vision. When you look directly at something in dim light, it's hard to see. But if you look slightly to the side, letting your peripheral vision catch it, suddenly it's clear. That's because the center of your eye works differently than the periphery. They're built for different tasks. The mind works the same way. Sometimes the direct approach makes things harder to see. You need to look sideways at them. This explains why solutions often come when you're not trying. When you stop the focused effort, the diffuse mode takes over. It's been working all along, but the focused mode was drowning it out, like trying to hear a quiet conversation while shouting. So how do you use this? When you're stuck on something, genuinely stuck, the answer isn't to think harder. It's to think differently. Work on something else. Read about a different subject. Take a walk. Let the problem sit. This feels wrong because we're taught that persistence means constant effort. But real persistence means knowing when to back off and let the deeper processes do their work. Now, let's apply this to some real situations. Suppose you're writing something, an essay, a letter, a report. You write a paragraph, and then you stop. It doesn't sound right, so you rewrite it. Still not right. You rewrite it again. After an hour, you have 6 versions, each slightly different, and you can't tell which is better anymore. This is overthinking in action. What's happening? You've lost the original sense of what you wanted to say. Each rewrite moves a little further from that original intention, and now you're comparing versions without any reference point. The solution isn't to analyze them more carefully. The solution is to step away completely. Go do something else for an hour or a day. When you come back, you'll immediately see which version is clearest, or you'll see that none of them captured what you meant, and you'll write a new version that does. Or consider decision-making. Someone offers you a job, and you need to decide. You make a list of pros and cons. The list is balanced good points on both sides, so you think about it more. You add more items to the list. You weight them differently. You ask friends. You lie awake thinking about it. And the more you think, the less certain you become. This happens because you're trying to reach certainty through analysis alone. But some decisions can't be analyzed into certainty. At some point, you have to recognize that you've gathered the available information, and now you simply need to choose. The overthinking isn't helping you decide. It's just postponing the decision while creating the illusion that you're making progress. Here's a useful technique. Set a specific time limit for deliberation. Give yourself 3 days to think about it. Really think, gather information, consider the angles, but when those 3 days are up, you decide. No more analysis. This forces you to distinguish between productive thinking and wheel spinning. Or take personal worries. Someone says something that bothers you. Maybe a criticism, maybe just an offhand comment. And you replay it in your mind. What did they mean? Were they attacking you? Should you say something back? What would you say? How would they respond? You're running through entire imaginary conversations, entire scenarios that haven't happened and probably never will. The problem isn't that you're thinking about it. The problem is that you're thinking in circles. There's no new information coming in, you're just recombining the same elements over and over. And each recombination feels slightly different, which tricks you into believing you're making progress, but you're not. You're just stirring the pot. The way out is to recognize this for what it is. Rehearsal without performance. You're practicing something that doesn't need practice. The real conversation, if it happens, won't go the way you're imagining anyway. All this mental rehearsal is just burning energy. What helps? Do something physical. Write the thoughts down and be done with them. Or better yet, do something completely unrelated that requires attention. Fix something, build something, read something challenging. The key is to engage the mind with something that has resistance, something that pushes back, that breaks the loop. Here's what all of this comes down to. Clarity doesn't come from more thinking. It comes from better thinking. And better thinking isn't about quantity or intensity. It's about knowing what kind of thinking serves you and what kind just spins in place. The mind is a remarkable instrument, but like any instrument, it can be used well or poorly. A violin in skilled hands produces music. In unskilled hands, it produces noise. The violin hasn't changed, only the way it's being used. Your mind works the same way. Overthinking is just the noise that happens when you're using the instrument incorrectly. The great liberation is realizing you don't need to control every thought. You don't need to solve every uncertainty. You don't need to know everything before you act. Most of the questions that keep you awake at night aren't real questions. They're just the mind running its commentary program because it has nothing better to do. Give it something better to do. Focus on what's concrete. What do you actually need to figure out? What information do you lack? What step comes next? These are real questions with real answers. Everything else, all the what-ifs, the self-doubt, the imaginary conversations, the endless analysis that's just static. And here's the strange thing. When you stop overthinking, you don't think less. You think better. You think more clearly. Ideas come easier. Solutions appear faster. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're getting out of your own way. The brain knows how to solve problems. It's been doing it long before you learn to second-guess it. Trust it to work. Give it real problems to chew on. Let it move at its own pace. And when it starts spinning its wheels, when you catch yourself in that familiar loop of thought about thought, just notice it. Don't fight it. Just see it for what it is, the mind's way of saying it has nothing productive to do right now. Then give it something productive, or give it nothing at all. Both work better than fighting with your own thoughts. If you found something useful here, there's more to explore. But don't explore it by thinking about what you learned. Explore it by using it. Pick one thing, just one, and try it the next time you catch yourself overthinking. That's all. One thing, one time. See what happens. The understanding comes from doing, not from analyzing the doing. And that might be the most important point of all.